Hello everyone. In today's video, we're going to be continuing our little series on 0 to ace in DCS, and we're finally going to be moving on to none other than the F-16. Now, the F-16 is quite a piece of work as far as an aircraft goes, and I will say, at least at the time of recording, that it is not a complete package. There are definitely some missing elements. The air-to-ground radar, some of the avionics pages aren't quite programmed out yet, but that being said, it's a great airplane, and it will work perfectly for the purposes of kind of getting a feel for a more advanced airplane at DCS. So what I have here is a pretty straightforward scenario. I'm taking us way up here at the Krasnodar Center. I've parked us over here on one of these nice little rampy things. The way, of course, you can control which ramp you start on. You can just go over here and set the parking. And I basically created a very, very simple little flight plan that's going to take us all the way out to Novorossiysk, down to Gelendzhik, and then it's going to take us up to Krasnodar Pashkovsky, which will basically give us a nice little kind of ability to kind of get the thing started, get a feel for some of the different control systems and everything along those lines. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, here we are, sitting high and proud inside this little teeny tiny airplane known as an F-16. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the history of the F-16, it's actually very fascinating. Basically, this thing was designed to be the lightweight fighter equivalent of the F-15. But over history, of course, people realize that not only is it a perfectly good fighter as a lightweight fighter, it actually can do a lot more at the same time. So this aircraft, no matter what you're doing, is always going to have the classic problem of you're going to be good at a lot of things, but you're never going to be really as great as the dedicated aircraft. So let's get this thing started, shall we? So starting this aircraft, it was literally designed for the purposes of getting going in a hurry here, which makes it really, really, really simple. It does have a complicated navigation system that makes it take a little bit longer to get going, but at least for our purposes, I'm not going to stress too much. So the first thing we're going to do is we're basically going to pop our heads all the way over here, and we're going to just kind of go through our controls real fast, make sure everything makes sense. Looks good, looks good. There's your anti-icing right there, in case you forget. I always like to come here and flip on the anti-icing. I'll go ahead and flip on the formation lights. Kind of let everybody know that we're here. Again, these are like your bacon lights, if you want to think about it another way. We're going to make sure our fuel is turned on, our engine fuel. By the way, you can really, really make this dangerous if you shift all the fuel to the forward, for example. Let's shift your center of gravity backwards. So what we have here is this handy-dandy little master switch. It says main power bat off. So we're just going to go ahead and right-click this once to snap it to the battery position. But when you do this, you're going to get about 1,000 different warning lights pretty much all the way around the inside of the aircraft. Don't worry about it, no problem. So we're going to right-click on the switch one more time to go to the main power. So now the moment you do that, this aircraft is now killing your battery in a hurry. So it's really, really important that you get things rolling quickly here. I'm going to set the parking brake by right-clicking on the switch right here. And then I'm going to come up to the jet starter. I'm going to click left on it to go ahead and get the jet starter going. As soon as you do that, you can hear all sorts of noises. And we're just going to watch our RPM. As soon as our RPM gets up to the appropriate speed, it's going to be about 20%. And about 20% now. We're going to press shift home. As soon as you press shift home, the fuel gets started, and we're just going to look over here and watch. Your temperature is going to spike as the engine starts to come up. And of course, everything else is going to start coming on. You're going to get a bunch of warning lights, and everything's going to get all grumpy at you. Looks like a good start. Man, that is such a satisfying sound. Boing, and everything snaps to life. Okay, now we have our engine rolling. That's as difficult as it is to get that thing started. I love that. Notice here, a big generator light pops off. Everything else is all set. We are literally ready to rock. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and close the canopy so I don't deafen myself here. All right, just hold down the control and C, and then you're going to slap the spider closed, which is going to latch onto that canopy. Now it's just a matter of getting everything else up and running. So as far as this aircraft goes, usually the first thing you want to do is make your way to this back panel, and you want to start getting these systems going right away. So for us, we have stored headings selected, so I'm just going to right-click once to snap it to here. This simply says, hey, inertial navigation system, get going. I'm going to go flip everybody on here. It's going to take a moment. Don't forget your mids, by the way, is your navigation system. If you don't turn that on, you're going to be a little grumpy. Popping down over here, we have our oxygen system. We have an on button. Of course, we also have a PBG mode. Basically, it's going to force pressure into you in the event that you're in a very high G situation. You can set it to whatever you want. It doesn't make that much of a difference. Temperature's fine. Obviously, air source, I'm going to leave it at normal. Consoles, you can turn anything on that you like. Swinging up here, we have a couple more switches. So we have our 2 hard points, assuming we're carrying anything, which we're not. We have a fire control radar, and we have a radar altimeter. I always like to think of this as kind of like if you want to think of our sensors panel. By the way, watch out for the switch because there's a standby and there's a radar alt button. Coming down on this side, you have a bunch of choices as far as what you want to display. Again, we can do ground speed, CAS, TAS, anything. We can select different radar modes. Like right now, we're set to barometric. I can put it on auto. So at low altitude, we get radar. At high altitude, we get baro. You can set this any way you want. You got a couple different pieces for testing. You can even crank up the instrument panel if you want. Now we'll go ahead and take a look. We're going to have a big angry master caution. We're going to slap that and make it go away. Now, what we have here is a little warning that says seat not armed. So I'm just going to click this button. Go ahead and arm the seat. All right, let's see what we got going on here. So this is our DED. This is basically where all of our basic data. If you're familiar with the A10, there's a much bigger screen for this, but unfortunately, this is all we got. What you have on this little number at the tippy top here is the INS system. This number is counting down as the INS is spinning up. Again, it's our gyroscope. And this is basically going to be our quality. These two positions here are our current latitude and longitude. If you did not do a stored heading, you'd have to come in here and actually push all these buttons yourself. But since we did, by the way, if you don't have the stored heading option, you can actually just come in here. And unfortunately, you're going to have to figure out the hard way for where you are. So what I like to do is if you go to the horizon of the center and actually click on yourself, you have your coordinates and your heading right here. So you can actually use that to enter into here manually. Again, if we want to shift between the pages, we can just hit the arrows, and all we have to do is type, starting with the letter that we're actually working with there. Now, I notice that this sucker right here says the word ready, and it's flashing, and we have a little 10 here. When it flashes ready, that means we're basically ready to go, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. If we want to accept this particular alignment, we simply come over here to the right, and we're simply going to right-click twice to get it to the nav position. Keep in mind, if we have to, we can always do in-flight alignment as well if we're stuck in the air. Now that this is all good and I'm happy, I'm just going to tap the return button. It's going to bring us back to our main page. Now, you're probably looking out the front windshield going, where's my heads-up display? Well, the heads-up display is here. You have to actually turn it on for anything to actually come through. That's one of those kind of little details that everybody's got to watch out for. I can make that a little brighter. Too much. Too much. Too much. Delightful. Don't worry about these two. They won't bother you or anything. So now our aircraft is ready to roll. The last couple little details we like to play with is I like to come over here and fire up my threat warning. This is the ANAWR. I like to fire on my countermeasures here. Again, to use those, you have to actually turn everything on first in order for it to work. We actually don't have 1 and 2. These would be the little buddies that you try to trail behind us. Pop that over to the semi. You can see I have 60 chaff, 60 flare, and everything is ready to go. And that's basically all there is to getting this thing rocking. So in our next video, we're going to go ahead and take this aircraft out to the taxiway, do a basic takeoff, and then we'll do a little bit of basic navigation. Before I do that, I just noticed off the corner of my eye that I totally forgot to uncage this thing, and I feel so bad. To uncage it, by the way, you simply roll the mouse on top of it. If you want to recage it, you just have to left-click on it. Again, one of those kind of things. And now I'm just making a quick little adjustment because we're nice and level. Looks good, looks good, looks good. Now, if we need to call for any sort of taxiing or anything like that, we could, of course, come in here, dial into the correct radio frequency, and off we go. Like I said, next time we'll take a look at taxiing as well as takeoff. Enjoy.